just wanted to come on here really quickly and just say that my washing machine is running in the background of this video. I wasn't able to kind of like fix the background noise, so you're gonna hear my washing machine. I'm so sorry. Okay, so welcome back to another video. I'm here today sitting with this background and sharing some personal information. I never thought I would actually sit here and do this video. I've been kind of wanting to record it, but also avoiding it because I feel like it's not only my story, but a couple of other people's stories. And everyone has their own perspective on their life. But this is my perspective and I thought I would share it. So I wrote down some notes on kind of like keeping my thoughts organized and stuff like that. I wrote these down a couple of days ago, so I am gonna go back and forth on checking down at this paper and talking to you guys. So I definitely want this video to be informational and not just like a story time, because I know there's other people out there who have also suffered from this or like are going through this in their life. I'm currently kind of whispering because I'm kind of embarrassed to film this in front of my boyfriend, so bear with me. So I don't even know where to like start, to be honest with you. I just don't. It's a hard thing. Anyways, I guess I kind of just will start with my parents and a little bit about what I know about their background, I guess. So I do have a mom and a dad. My mom is originally from Honduras, and she came to America legally. She loves to say that. She paid for her papers and stuff like that when she was 12 years old. And her mom wasn't the nicest. She was a bit heavy-handed, I guess you can say. She would hit my mom a lot. My mom didn't really like that. My mom never really got to know her father. And so all these things kind of played a role on growing up for her. She just struggled a lot with that. And it just played a role. Anyways, my dad, not really familiar with my dad's background. He never really had a father figure either. His father, I believe, had another family and didn't really tell my father's mother about that family, and one day just left. I never got to meet him. So with that being said, I don't really have a grandfather. I have an adopted grandfather, kind of like a step grandfather really. He's married into the family on my mom's side, so that's who I call grandpa. But I don't really have a biological grandpa, and I'm totally fine with that. I mean, I don't really need one. My grandpa, my step grandpa, my grandpa, he's all I really need, to be honest. So giving that context kind of gives you kind of like a background of maybe what some things they've struggled with in their lives. And I know for a fact, you know, my mom side of the family also might suffer from mental health issues and stuff like that, which also eventually showed up in her adulthood. So that's where I'm going to take you to back into the point where I can remember, or really back to the point where it became so drastic it was hard to ignore. So I was about 10 years old at this time, and I was living in Queens, New York, and we had been living there ever since I was basically young, and basically can remember we were living there. I knew my dad was an alcoholic. He would drink on the weekends, sometimes during the weekdays. My dad had gotten arrested a couple of times because my mom and dad would fight, stuff like that. So I do remember those things and those instances, but they never really played a big part, but they still did, I guess you could say, because I still got traumatized. My dad wasn't really supposed to be around us when we were younger, but my mom kind of just constantly just let him back in. My older brother, because I have two, he did not like him, and when I was about 10 years old, he moved away. I'm not really good on my age sense. I just know that I was young. So I was young, 10 years old, and my brother decided that he wanted to move away and leave and go live with his father, which my older brother does not share a father with me. So he decided he was gonna leave because he didn't really like my father, and he just kind of wanted to go somewhere new. So he left. And as any parent, that would make you a little upset. But I also feel like for my mom, my older brother was a big help for her. I think mentally, I think he helped her stay stable. And there was many other instances that I can get into, but I feel like maybe for another video I will. But there's just so many stories that I have in my childhood that I remember. I don't remember them in what order they happened in, because it's just like, it's all a big blur right now, and I think it's just so much stuff that I've gone through that it's hard to kind of just put into words. So at that time, my brother was gone, and it was just me and my other older brother. And now my other older brother has autism, and he's high functioning, which is funny because I am a disability services major. But anyways, so it's just me and him at this time, and I remember before that I would go to my mom's therapy appointments with her and just kind of sit in the lobby and wait for her to be done. I kind of just followed her everywhere, like if I just went with her everywhere. I was the youngest. So she constantly had therapy appointments, and then she kind of just like stopped going, stopped taking her medication. At the time I didn't know that. I didn't really notice. You know, you're young, you're 10, you're not supposed to be taking care of your parents. But it took a toll on her. So not only did she lose her son, but she also didn't have the medication to keep her sane. And I didn't really know any of the things that my mom was suffering from. So my mom was main caregiver of the house, and after her not having her son, not having her medication, not going to therapy, she had what I believe is a mental breakdown, and she relied heavily on alcohol. for maybe a couple of weeks. I don't really remember much. I just remember that I had to go to school, and me and my brother would go to school. My parents were not really like there. My dad, for some reason, decided, because my mom was having a mental breakdown, that he was gonna go drink and just leave us to kind of fend for ourselves. So me and my brother would go to school, and we would eat breakfast and lunch, and then come back and not really eat anything, or try and figure out what we were gonna eat another day. Sorry, that was my watch. Mac and cheese, easy, stuff like that. But then food started to run low. One thing that my mom, what the frick? I'm so sorry. Maybe I should have worn this. Anyways, so my mom, one thing at one point at that time was my mom was consistent at making sure she paid the bills. So just like, we lived in the project, so she only had to pay one bill. She was pretty consistent at that. I know that she received a lot of disability from my brother, so that kind of just paid the bills for her. And I believe she was also on disability, but I don't think she got a lot from that, I think. So that paid the bills, but she didn't. She wasted the rest of the money on getting alcohol. I remember this one instance where we were trying to help her stop drinking, but inevitably she was, crying and screaming. And so me and my brother decided, we can't stop her from going, but at least we can walk her there to make sure she's safe and to make sure she comes back home and she doesn't fall, while she's going to the liquor store. So we literally walked her there and waited for her to get liquor and then come back out. So, oh my god, I don't know why I'm getting like these feelings coming back on me. It's like weird. Anyways, I can remember that very vividly, actually. Eventually, I decided that I was kind of done. I tried to call one of my mom's friends who lived across the way in a different building in the projects. She came over, but my dad had somehow, he decided he wanted to come back, and he was there, and he was in the house. We were in the house. She came over, started knocking, and my dad shoved us all into a room, and she was knocking at the door. The lady was knocking at the door, and my mom was like crying and screaming, and my dad like covered her mouth and told us to shut up. And he was just not allowing us to get the help that my mom needed. And it was very frustrating. I remember crying, but I was not giving up. My dad left at one point, and I decided I was going to go over to this lady's house instead. And I called, and I told her, can I borrow her phone to call my grandpa? And I was able to get in touch with him. And he got my godmother, and they were able to drive from Staten Island to Queens to pick up me, my brother, and my mom. And my mom was still in that state. It was pretty hard. I remember being very, very nervous that my dad was going to come back and we were not going to get her out in time. And I just remember just saying, please come quickly, because I don't know if he's going to let us go. when they finally got there and we were able to put her in the car, I felt like it was going to get better. But a lot happened afterwards, after that. So much. It's only been 15 minutes and I have a lot to say in here, and I just don't know if I'm going to get everything situated and said. So at that point, my mom was then placed into a mental hospital, I believe. And she got a little bit better, but not too long afterwards, she said that she was going to the corner store to get chips. And I remember telling her, okay, can you get me Doritos? And she said, okay. And she never came back with a bag of chips. I remember being worried and not really knowing where she was going. And at this time, we were living with my grandparents. And I remember just having so much anxiety and worrying about my mom. And she would get annoyed and she'd be like, stop worrying about me, you know, stay in a child's place. Everyone would kind of tell me that. But I just knew, you know, that she just she wasn't the same anymore. And after just dealing with all that stuff, I personally was no longer the same. I felt like in an instance I grew up and I wanted to basically kind of take care of my mom. I became her mom, and it was just weird. I don't really know. So basically what happened when she didn't come back from the corner store is that she met up with my father again. They went back to the apartment in Queens, and they started drinking again, I guess. And my mom someone from my church was able to go and check up on my mom in Queens, because my grandparents didn't really like driving over the bridge. They're kind of old, so they didn't really like doing that. And she was able to come in contact with my mom, and they sent her to a hospital. Again, she received help, but evidently there was still a process after. Give me a second. Okay, I'm back. So basically, my mom went to the hospital again after this point, and this time she's put into a outpatient program, where she's frequenting, kind of going to like AA meetings and just kind of like talking to people, going to therapy, receiving medication. But she would still drink, and obviously she would take urine tests and they would see it. So at one point they said, okay, you're going to rehab. And just like that, my mom was gone. My mom went to rehab, and for a long time, I don't remember how long it was, but I knew that she missed I think it was my 8th grade graduation, my middle school graduation, I believe. No, my elementary school graduation. Yeah, it was my 5th grade. She missed my graduation. I remember being so upset. I had Shirley Temples, and I had put on this white church dress, and she missed it. My dad was there, and my mom's friend, but evidently she missed my graduation. Now you're gonna hear that, you know, my dad's there, my dad's here. he was constantly just in and out at this point. He was there, he was not there, he would still get drunk, he would, you know, do these things. I was young at this point, so, you know, it's hard for you to be like, I never want to talk to you at like 11, you know, like that's not a thing that you do, type of thing, you know. But my dad was there. He was consistently there, I guess you can say, but not really like inconsistent basically at that point. And my brother Christian, which was there with me during these hard times, he never forgave my father. And for me, I feel like I forgave him a little bit to the point where I just kind of was like, I'm ready to just keep going with my life and pushing through. And I said, you know, I don't need forgiveness. I need to continue on with my life. I think I've changed that now. I've definitely have. Basically, this is just kind of like a backstory of kind of like just a baseline of some things that are going on in my life, that have gone on in my life. And my dad never really apologized for all of that. My mom, she eventually said she was sorry. It took a while for her to get there, but she eventually learned that she needed to apologize to her children, and that was great. I remember one day, not too long ago, sitting in the car with my dad, and he was talking about my brother Christian and why he, you know, was so hard-headed or he didn't like him. And I was like, well, maybe it's because you never really apologize for all these things. And he said, and I quote because I remember saying that, I remember him hearing it and just replaying it, I would never say sorry to my children. Like, that's what he said. And I remember just being like, how can you say that? But I kind of just brushed it off. My dad has this thing of saying, family is family, blood is blood, you know, we have to stick together because we're family. And I'm 22 years old right now, and I just feel like I don't want to hold on to family who treat me horrible. I'm just sitting here and just explaining that to you guys because that is his number one thing to say. Kind of like a guilt trip, that because he's blood and that, you know, he's my father, that I can't turn my back on him. That I can't be mad at what he's done. And I'm supposed to just forgive him without even him saying sorry because he's family. And that's not the case. I don't think that's okay. We moved down to Jacksonville not too long ago. And before that, my parents had this cycle of working, getting drunk, you know, struggling with their job, not knowing if they're gonna have a job because they've been drinking for 5-6 days. And then, you know, go either start a new job or have the same one after apologizing to their bosses or whatever. course, moving down to Jacksonville was supposed to be a fresh start, and it was just supposed to be for my mom. And then my dad came with her, and I remember just knowing it was going to be the same cycle over and over again. And I remember just being so tired of it. The pandemic hit, and I was just thrown back into being in the house again. Before then, I was in New Orleans, so I had some space, and I was going to school, and I was just focused on myself, having fun, not worrying. I remember before applying for college, sitting down with my counselor, and I remember just like, I need someone to talk to. And I said, I don't know if I want to go away to school. And he said to me, are you going to be that daughter that's just going to sit in the house and worry about her parents all day? You should be able to live. They have a life, you know. Yours is basically just starting. And that right there, and I want to give a great shout out to Gene and Richard R. Green. I'm not sure if he's still there, but he was the best counselor I could have ever had, because I just remember sitting there and just talking to him and explaining what I've struggled with. And now, you know, we moved to Jacksonville, blah, blah. I decided I wanted to go to the dorms for my school, and I got back that freedom again, and I decided I never wanted to go back to my parents' house, because I feel like I needed space. I was tired of constantly reliving that cycle. I was tired of having to help pick up the pieces to fix things. I had, in order for my parents to get an apartment in Jacksonville, because my mom had messed up and did something, and then was basically depressed, and my dad was drinking, they didn't have any money. I had to get a Parent Plus loan taken out from school and give them the money to get an apartment in Jacksonville. And for my dad to say like, oh, I can't wait for you to take these loans off of my like, the apartment that you're in, okay, is from that loan. You know, so ungrateful. Sometimes so ungrateful. And the amount of money I've given them, the amount of money, it's like ridiculous. You know, you're supposed to be able to like pay your parents back when they get older, but I barely have a job that's putting, you know, money in my pocket. So yeah, I went to the dorm, I had my freedom, and I also had a boyfriend during this year, and this is my first boyfriend. And after the year ended, after a year of living in the dorm, I decided I was just gonna stay with my boyfriend who has a house by himself. And I was like, why not? Why not just stay with him instead? And I think my parents didn't like that. They thought I was moving too fast, which I understand them being worried. But at this time, I'm 22. I kind of know what I want in my relationship and what I don't want. And I kind of knew what I wanted. We did have a little bit of a fight, and it wasn't like us screaming at each other, it was just us needing space from each other. And so I decided, you know, I'm gonna sleep over at my parents' house and give each other space. and I brought all my things with me because it was taking up a lot of space in his house. So I brought all the things that I had from my dorm room back to my parents' house. And then we got back together and we realized like we need to learn how to give each other space, and we talked it out and stuff like that. And I moved back in. It was literally like maybe 3 days that we were just trying to figure out what we wanted in a relationship, I guess. And my dad, when I came over, never really, like when I first initially came over after the fight, he didn't really give me a chance to talk about what I was upset about, and he would tell me stories on top of him talking, and I was just like, oh my god, you don't understand what I'm upset about. So eventually I talked to my mom, and I was able to express myself and explain to her what I was upset about, and she kind of like understood because she herself struggles with those things in a relationship. That's another video for another day. But yeah, I moved back in with my boyfriend not too long ago. I'm trying to like wrap up this story time really quickly. And then yeah, I kind of like started slowing down on the communication with my parents at this time because I just didn't feel like talking to them. I didn't want to explain to them. I feel like I explained to my mom. I didn't want to explain to my dad also how I was feeling, what I was going through with my boyfriend, and how we solved it, type of thing. So my dad decided after a couple of days that he was going to just show up at my boyfriend's house. Now my dad was never invited here, and my boyfriend never gave him his address. My dad got his address from basically tracking me on Life 360, and my mom tracking me on iMessage location sharing. I had turned off these locations several times while dating my boyfriend because my dad would make weird snarky comments saying like, oh, I know where you live, and that creeped me out. Like, why would you do that? And why would you even say that to him? I don't know. I feel like maybe it's like a father thing, but also it's just like, why do you care? I'm 22. I'm not 16, you know? And my dad didn't like my boyfriend for some reason because he thinks that he's higher than him, and he thinks that I'm higher than him, and that he's not good for me. And I'm like, okay, but here you are. Like, you know, type of thing. So yeah, he decided he wanted to come over to the house, and basically we got into an altercation in the front. He wanted to talk to my boyfriend and was like banging on the door, screaming, and I was like, go away, go home, like, why are you here? And there was literally no reason for him to be here, but to technically intimidate and try to scare my boyfriend. But I am Kayla, and you're not gonna intimidate me. I'm big enough. Try me. And me and my dad, he grabbed me. He tried to come up into my face first, and I pushed him back a little bit. I'm like, go home. And then he grabs my arms, and we start like literally fighting. I'm like, let go of me, let go of me. This is not the first time that's happened. My dad has gotten to several fights with my mother, and at one point I had literally had to jump on top of him and tell him, don't touch my mom. And we had gotten to a fight. He had grabbed my hair. He had tried to say, you know, I'm his father, I'm your father. And the same thing he tried to do again the other day by saying that he's my father and that he could do whatever he wants, I guess. And I'm just tired of it. I'm honestly, I don't know. I think it's funny, but it's not funny. That's like my coping mechanism. I feel like this story is kind of just jumbled, but I'm just trying to tell you guys a little bit about why I decided to no longer well, I wouldn't say no longer, but why I decided to distance myself from my parents. I love my mom. I love her a lot. And I'm grateful for her. I'm grateful for her for understanding me and saying sorry. But because she consistently wants to be around a person like that, I'm tired. I've gotten to the point where I'm tired of being treated so horribly and not even given the respect or the apology that I deserve. And it makes me angry to even think that now my boyfriend's kind of like twirled in this. And it's hard because, you know, I had to like have a conversation with my boyfriend and, you know, he was upset about it. And how do you explain to someone that they would never say sorry? They will never think that they're in the wrong. They will always think they're right. How do you explain that to someone? You can't. And it's so aggravating to think that for years I've kind of just like brushed it off and continue going, brushed it off, continue going, having disappointment after disappointment. I'm just tired of that. I no longer want to just sit here and just endure things. I have the power to make choices in my life, and I have the power to choose what I want in my life. And if I think that you're hindering my happiness, then I get to say, you know what? You're my father, but I am tired of constantly having to just put up with your shit. And I think that's basically it. I feel like maybe I can do a part 2 of the story because I have a lot to say, and there's still not a lot of things that I've addressed in here. But my dad has always been abusive. My mom has also been, I wouldn't say too abusive, but she was on a scale at one point in my life. And she stopped and she turned it around. But my dad has stayed the same throughout everything and refuses that he has a problem, refuses that he needs to say sorry or that he's done anything wrong. And at one point, for me, I feel like you are an enabler, and I have become an enabler for him, and I've let him think that it's okay to do what he does and to be forgiven every single time, and I'm not willing to do that anymore. The other day was Father's Day, I think it was yesterday, and my mom texted me a couple of times saying that, you know, say Happy Father's Day, and I almost didn't want to say it. He had texted me earlier in the day saying that, you know, we're family and family, you know, stick through everything, stuff like that. to think that I can't rely on my family. It's a hard thing. I don't know why I'm getting so emotional. I'm fine. I am fine. But it's hard to think that I can't rely on my family like other people do. I want to be able to follow my dreams and my freedom and build a life for myself. My older brother did, and he's living a great life by himself, and I plan on doing the same. I have a lot of ambition, and I have a lot of goals that I want to accomplish, and I feel like my parents are hindering me from getting there, and I feel like that's so sad, because you want to take your parents, you want to make sure they see that you've accomplished things, but I just don't feel like in this moment that I'm not going to be able to get out of this cycle if I'm sitting in it. So I need to change that, and I need to get myself out of that cycle. And I think this is the way at the moment that will be healthiest for me, is to I'm not cutting off complete communication and saying I'm never talking to you again, but to distance myself, because I'm no longer willing to pick up the pieces when they fall apart for them. They need to start doing it themselves, and I'm no longer doing that. So that's a bit of my story, a bit of why I decided that I wanted to distance myself from my parents. There's a lot more to it, and this video is already long in itself, but there's so much that I can talk to you guys about. But this is just the one thing that I want to address and talk about. So yeah, I'm moving away. If everything goes well, we are moving away, and I'm going to start somewhere fresh. I want to be healthier with my eating habits, my life, taking care of myself, going to school, graduating, focusing on me, bettering myself. That's my aim for this next years. Because I'm ready to focus on me, and I'm tired of focusing on other people. I need to be more encouraging to myself. And I hope that the rest of you guys can do that too. Life is hard, and certain decisions are hard, and this was not an easy decision for me, but it was a decision that needed to be made for myself and my sanity and my health, mentally and physically. So yeah, I wanted to share this video and show you guys kind of what my life is like. It's not a full picture, but it is a picture of how I'm feeling. So yeah, that is the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this little bit of story time. I'm gonna try and edit it as good as possible, but I don't know if I want to edit much, because I want this story to be so true in itself. Like I said before, and I'll say it again, there's a lot more to the story, and I jumped around a lot because I feel like I really needed to explain like significant parts, but there's tiny you guys have any stories or any type of relation to this type of story, let me know, because I feel kind of lost in a way, but I know I have my brothers who are with me who understand. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.